This is Allegiant Stadium. You can see it from high above. 49ers and the Raiders tie. I'm going to put this down. I've got the little mini tripod. You put this down. We can talk about this game from Allegiant. We can talk about what Kyle Shanahan said. We have an injury report on Ricky Pearsall. Subluxation or sublex of his shoulder, which is essentially a dislocation of his shoulder. He did it in OTAs, did it again in training camp, and I guess it happened his junior year of college as well. So the 49ers, because of the tenderness of the injury, have determined that they want to slow play this and make sure that Ricky Pearsall's 100% before he comes back. They hope that he's going to be back at practice next week. If he's back at practice next week, then Kyle Shanahan thinks that he can play on Monday night, September 9th, against the Jets. So that's where the 49ers are with Ricky Pearsall. So much hysterical talk about Ricky Pearsall. I mean, the guy is hurt. He hurt his shoulder. Guys in football get hurt. Brandon Ayuk missed his first career game in 2020. He was hurt as well. And then he went on to have a great rookie season. And following the great rookie season, he turned it into a really good stretch on a rookie contract. And now Brandon Ayuk is in line to get paid a lot of money. So you can't make a judgment on Ricky Pearsall based on what happens to every single football player. They get hurt at some point. So the 49ers want to get the shoulder under control. And Kyle Shanahan said that he thinks that 80% of the 49ers players have suffered a sublexed shoulder at some point, which is a partial dislocation. So he doesn't think that Ricky Pearsall's any different than the standard player. And he also says that there is no structural damage to Pearsall's shoulder. Anyway, thank you to those of you back on the East Coast. I'm actually at the stadium. I don't think a lot of us in the media made the trip, but I made the trip here to Vegas. I'm actually at the stadium here in Las Vegas, going to fly back to the Bay Area tomorrow. So I had to go down to the locker room where most of the talk was about that crazy final play. I mean, I'm watching the replay of it right now. And let's just narrate what happened on that crazy final play. 24 all, time expires, Mordecai rolls out, just heaves one. The ball is batted up into the air, bounces around twice. Trent Taylor makes the catch. Taylor fights, pitches it back as he realizes that he's going to be tackled. Sebastian Gutierrez, the lineman, picks it up tumbling, tosses it back to Ronnie Bell, who tosses it back to Cody Schrader. Still legal at this point. Schrader tosses it back to Mordecai, fumbles it, picks it up, and here's where the flag comes in. Mordecai, as he gets drilled, throws forward to Schrader. Flag's flying. Schrader, though, continues playing, tosses it back to Gutierrez. Gutierrez thinks he's going to score, but he's tripped up at the 3, and then the ball bounces backwards again, and Jarrett Kingston falls on it at the 1. Play's over. Flag obviously happened. I think that had more changes of hands than the play in 1982 between Cal and Stanford, and it had also way more drama than the Holy Roller, the famous Raiders play against the San Diego Chargers. Absolutely crazy stuff. But in the Niners locker room, they're all talking about the effort. I mean, you saw guys like Sebastian Gutierrez just laying there, passed out on the field after, because they expended a lot of energy trying to win this game. And the 49ers put more energy trying to win the game than the Raiders did, that's for sure. Then the Raiders decided to kick a field goal, playing for the tie. They haven't had overtime since in preseason, since I think they banned it in 2021. So you probably have to go back to before the COVID year, back to 2019, to see a preseason game go to overtime. You always had coaches try to actively avoid overtime, and I would think that you would try to actively avoid a tie because this isn't soccer. But Antonio Pierce did not want to see the 49ers win that game. So we saw a tie in overtime, just the way it went. I did not agree with it. It was 4th and 15. Carter Bradley, the rookie quarterback for the Raiders, probably should have not spiked the ball to set up a 4th and 15. The clocking there is what put the Raiders in position, I guess. They decided, okay, we want to run for the tie in this situation. But It's all good. Who cares? It's the preseason. I just thought that the fans here, they're going crazy, by the way, here at Allegiant Stadium. This place was packed. I thought it was louder than the Super Bowl at many times of this game. And the fans definitely wanted to see a winner and a loser in this game. I don't think that they wanted to see a tie, but they all ended up seeing the tie in this football game. I've got some notes, and I went through them earlier. Purdy looked really, really good today. I think we could start with that. We needed to see rhythm from Brock Purdy. We saw rhythm from Brock Purdy. We saw some beautiful throws deep to Deebo Samuel. The intermediate to Kittle as he got drilled was special. The one on the run to Chris Conley was excellent as well. The interception throw wasn't bad either. That wasn't Brock Purdy's fault. That one clanged off of Deebo Samuel with the corner coming in over the top, made a great play. It's football. But that was on the heels of really, really intense pressure over the right tackle spot against Colton McKivitz from Snowden on the Raiders. So Brock Purdy did what he could, especially in that play. He was coming hard from the middle of the field to the sideline to grab the safety to make sure it wasn't a pick six. That's one that you don't like to see if you're the 49ers. It's Brock Purdy throwing his throwing shoulder into a diving, tumbling stop. I mean, it was really athletic. We saw some athletic plays from Purdy on the field today, but the 49ers are thankful that he didn't get hurt in this football game. Other than that, I thought that Purdy looked really good. Speaking of effort, the 49ers players were all there gassed by the end of that holy roller, the Hail Mary, whatever you want to call it, play at the end of the game. And the fact that this ended in a tie, I just thought was too bad because I thought that it was a low-key, a really good game, back and forth, 49ers defense going at it. Darrell Luter Jr. going against his former college teammate, Carter Bradley, the quarterback of the Raiders. They were both together at South Alabama in 2022. Luter intercepted Bradley in the red zone. I mean, it was cool stuff going back and forth there at the end, but it's just too bad that it had to end the way that it did. Earlier in the game, I think it's really clear that the 49ers need Trent Williams back. I think it's really clear they don't want Nick Zakelj starting at left guard. I think Zakelj is a better center than he's a guard. Most of the pressure was coming in on Purdy from the left side, but except for the interception play, which came in on the right side against Colton McKivitz. And then the beautiful throw to Kittle. People aren't going to talk about the pressure all too much, although they should, because it was just a fantastic, fantastic throw from Purdy. It looked like the Raiders ran a stunt over the right side, and Dominic Pooney got a little bit crossed up. But on the very opening touchdown, Jordan Mason running in for the touchdown, Pooney took his defender, the tackle, and pushed him back the 8-9 yards into the end zone, put him on skates to the end zone. So that was really impressive from Dominic Pooney, who's going to be the 49ers starting right guard. I think the two interesting injuries at the start for the 49ers, and both guys are going to undergo MRIs. It's going to be Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos. Both underwent knee injuries on successive plays. So the 49ers will hold their breath on the MRIs, but I don't think, based on Leonard Floyd getting back out there, joking around on the sideline, we saw him smiling near Kyle Shanahan. I do think that there is a higher probability of good news for the 49ers, especially on the Leonard Floyd front. But I don't want to say anything too definitive until they actually do undergo those MRIs. So maybe by tomorrow, I think for sure by Monday, we're going to have a official word from the 49ers on those two. That's a spot where they can't really afford to undergo losses of time without significantly weakening their performance, because the defensive end pecking order had already been thin. It goes Nick Bosa didn't play today, Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, and then who is it? Robert Beal. It seems that he's number 4 on the depth chart right now. Maybe we see Alex Barrett climb up that depth chart. He's been on the practice squad since 2019. Maybe this is his big opportunity. But if you lose either one of those two guys for any stretch of time, Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos, you're significantly weakened at a position that was already a position of concern. So I don't want to, jump forward too quickly and say that this is a disaster for the 49ers, because the MRI results haven't come back, and we saw Leonard Floyd back on that sideline, which I think is significant for the 49ers. But it is, I think, really, really worth emphasizing at this point that That's something to watch for the 49ers. You want to get out of these games healthy, which is why I think that it was a positive that Brock Purdy got out of it healthy despite having to make a pick-six saving tackle on a throw after an interception that wasn't even his fault. Boy, Mason looked really, really good today running the football. Let me pull up a few stats right now here from the press box at Allegiant Stadium. I want to go to Niners, Raiders. I want to see, Purdy was 9 of 12. 49ers quarterbacks as a whole were flirting with an 80% completion percentage at one point in this game, which I thought was really impressive. I thought, Dobbs, I look at Brandon Allen as a quarterback who's going to give you a high floor, and I look at Josh Dobbs as a quarterback who is going to give you a higher ceiling. And if they can get that floor up for Dobbs, I think it's probably a little bit lower than it is with Brandon Allen, then he's going to be your QB2. If you can't, then Allen's going to be your QB2. But I think either way, you're keeping both of these guys on the 53-man roster. I think there'd be too much interest, maybe by a team like the Tennessee Titans. I mean, their coach, Callahan, he was the offensive coordinator of Cincinnati when Dobbs was the backup there. I think there'd be too much interest from some of these teams in Brandon Allen to have him be a poach-free kind of player. I think that he'd get scooped up by another team. So I think the 49ers want to stockpile at the quarterback position. I think they'll take 3. I think they'll take 5 running backs, including Kyle Juszczyk. I think you saw Isaac Guerendo really seal his spot as an active member of this team, active part of that 46 or 48-man roster. I talked to Isaac Guerendo. I think the effort was a theme of today. We saw all those guys totally depleted after the final play. How about Isaac Guerendo? 93-yard kick return. I asked him, how far do you think you ran? He's like, yeah, probably 140 yards. And I mentioned this in an instant reaction. There are 2 players over the course of the past 20 years who have entered the NFL at a 220-pound weight and running a 4.340. DK Metcalf and Isaac Guerendo. But when you have to run 140 yards at that kind of weight, and Isaac had to run much further than DK did when he ran down Budda Baker. So when you have to run, at that weight, that fast, you're going to get tired toward the end. And I think that's what happened for Guerendo. But he might be the perfect fit for the new kick return rule. And I think Cam Latu took out 2 guys blocking there. I think Latu, I mentioned arrow up from him. I'm going to find some of my notes from today's game here, hopefully. Or I could go through my Twitter. If I go through my Twitter, then I could essentially tell you guys what I thought was tweet-worthy at the time. I've got a ton of notes, and I think I lost my spot here in the notebook. So why don't we go to that Twitter page? But the 49ers are going to cut down their roster, and I think that they're going to stockpile quarterbacks. I think they're going to keep the running backs that we expect them to. I think Jacob Cowing has obviously punched his ticket onto this football team out of the 4th round. He scored the touchdown today. Josh Dobbs had the football on that play. He's going to give it to his mom. It was a cool moment. You could check out that video for the locker room. I'm going to, take my time tweeting all this kind of stuff out tomorrow. I know it's late right now, especially on the East Coast. It's 11:46, so just wanted to get a little bit of a report in here for you guys. I think that along the offensive line, the 49ers obviously need their A-list guys back. Trent Williams, that goes without saying. I think on the defensive line, they need health from Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos. Otherwise, that's getting a little sketchy. I think they've got potentially really good linebacker play. I think Demetrius Flanagan-Foles had a good game today. Safety play, you have to like too. Jair Brown forced a fumble after he picked off Patrick Mahomes in this very same stadium in Las Vegas. I believe that the cornerback play is promising. This is the deepest they've ever been. Samuel Womack had 3 pass breakups today, and he made a good final statement to try to become the last corner making this roster. Renardo Green is already playing with the first team in some of these instances at practice. So, I mean, you've got a lot of talent across the entire roster, and now comes the hard part of figuring out how it's all going to work. And first you have to get the health reports back on guys like Leonard Floyd, who, by the way, has played on 108 straight games. So he's been an Ironman, and some of that might be put to the test as he undergoes the MRI for the knee injury. All right, here we go. This is what I talked about on Twitter. The 49ers frontline players in the locker room really appreciated the sheer effort dispensed by the backups on that final Hail Mary Holy Roller play. The Holy Roller Again, the reason I'm saying that, it's an homage to the logo on the field. They played the Raiders today, so we got to bring back the Holy Roller. Speaking of Hail Marys, Josh Dobbs threw one to Jawan Jennings back in college at Tennessee. So Trent Taylor was the one that caught it today off the bounce, but it didn't lead to a touchdown. I mentioned Ricky Pearsall, the shoulder subluxation. Anybody trying to pass off early judgment on Ricky Pearsall, I'm sorry, I just cannot take you and your football acumen seriously. I mentioned the 49ers and Raiders fans were really loud. This place was pretty full. It was loud, a lot of 49ers fans. I don't think anybody wanted to see a tie, but whatever. We saw the tie. The Carter Bradley, Darrell Luter Jr. battle was really, really neat there toward the end of the game. I'm going to go back to my notes at the start of this football game. Brock Purdy with a clean pocket, very first play. Nice to Deebo Samuel. Looked really comfortable back there. Then you hit Kittle, even as he got drilled on the stunt. That was good. In that first drive, the 49ers were willing to split Jordan Mason out wide. Empty backfield out wide. In the postseason last year, the 49ers called 109 pass plays and only 77 run plays. And, it was mainly a function of them believing in Brock Purdy and I think evolving into a more pass-heavy offense. They're still going to want to be balanced, but they trust Purdy. I mean, he's the real deal. We saw how awesome he looked today. He was doing some special stuff in a short amount of time on that football field, even behind sketchy pass protection. And so it's going to be natural. They're going to be throwing the ball. They're going to be running a lot more empty. Jordan Mason, too, on the jugs machine this summer, spending $3,000 to invest in himself, and then his dad is investing in him in that Nashville heat. A guy like Jordan Mason in the past, they wouldn't have gone empty with Jordan Mason. They wouldn't have sent him out to wide receiver. Unfortunately, he couldn't hang on to the ball. I don't think it was a perfect football from Brock Purdy on that play, but still, it just shows the attitude that the 49ers are playing with. They know they have a quarterback that can escape. They know they have a quarterback that can throw it extremely accurately. And that first drive, or the first couple drives of Brock Purdy moving the 49ers right down the field, really, really did illustrate all of that. I wrote that the Brock Purdy pump fake and sidestep to get out of dodge before the challenge throw to George Mason. That was our first 2024 example of Brock Purdy's elite movement ability. Purdy has great quickness, but just as importantly, a superb spatial awareness. I wrote about that a lot, including after my trip down to Ames. Brock Purdy got drilled on that third down throw to George Kittle, still placed in an impossibly perfect spot, 20-plus yards downfield. That's an elite throw that precious few quarterbacks in the NFL are making consistently, but Purdy made it consistently all of last season. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan needed to see any more from Brock Purdy. And he yanked him shortly after he exposed himself to that hit on the interception run back. And, I think it goes without saying that at that point, Kyle Shanahan was probably like, okay, I've already seen Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos exit with injuries. We've seen all that we need to from Brock Purdy. Jair Brown punched out that football. Demetrius Flangan and Foles played really well too. Robert Beal Jr. recovered the ball. 49ers might need a lot from Robert Beal if Floyd or Gross-Matos miss any time. Then later on, I noted Alex Barrett was playing a lot, practice squad guy since 2019 for the 49ers. The 49ers gave up a punt return for a touchdown today. That's why I think it's so important that they get their efficient grouping of wide receivers on this coming 53-man cutdown. On this field in that Super Bowl, Chris Conley was just an awesome, awesome gunner. And I think that you really need that. I mean, punt return coverage hasn't been a huge weakness for the 49ers. It's been mediocre. They've been worse on the kick game, which obviously I think they fixed a little bit today. We'll see who handles it. But Isaac Guerrero made a name for himself today on that 93-yard return where he ran 140 yards. Punt return coverage has been mediocre. It was really good in the Super Bowl with Chris Conley. And I think for this team to be its best self over the course of the season, Chris Conley needs to be one of the gunners. I think he's really, really impressive in that regard. Here's one of my tweets about Cam Latu. Even if Cam Latu isn't yet fully ready, it's time to acknowledge that he's improved significantly from year one to year two. It's safe to call him an ascending player, and there's a good chance the 49ers will really value his large frame for blocking at the tight end 4 spot and also on special teams, where I thought that he cleared the way, got 2 guys out of the way on the big Isaac Guerrero return. I don't know what the hell the 49ers are going to do at swing tackle. Brandon Parker gave up a bad sack today with Brandon Allen at quarterback, but they're still playing Brandon Parker, the former Raider, at right tackle, and Chris Hubbard at left tackle, both outside their comfort positions. So the 49ers are obviously testing for swing tackle comfort. They're treating this as practice. But to me, Parker looked like a fish out of water on the sack that he gave up. And that was the Snowden. So was it Parker gave the snack to Snowden? I don't know if the McKivitz pressure to Snowden. I got to look back on some of my notes. But McKivitz, that wasn't good either on the 3rd and 6 on what turned into the Purdy interception. Obviously wasn't Purdy's fault, that one. Okay, got it to the right spot to Deebo Samuel. You got to credit the corner for the great play. And obviously you have to blame the pass protection for the hurried throw. That still was good enough to get to the target, but Deebo Samuel didn't generate all too much separation on that particular play. I talked a lot about how spirited of an environment it was here in Vegas. I thought it was really cool to see the 49ers and Raiders fans get after it, and they wanted, everybody wanted bragging rights, and they ended up leaving with a tie, so nobody really does get those bragging rights. Jacob Cowing ran a really good route to open the second half. I know that he could run the go ball. We saw the pump and go last week against the New Orleans Saints, but he ran an intermediate inbreaker today where he came back to the football. Nice strong hands, but strong body positioning as well. And, something like that shows you that there's a robust route tree there from Jacob Cowing. I mean, it's not just about, he's a smaller receiver, and sometimes those guys can fall into the trap of not putting their body on the line over the middle of the field. They can fall, he's so explosive, they can just be going for the go balls. They can just be going for some of those plays where they're getting instant separation. So to come back and make a catch, intermediate part of the field, mid-game, it wasn't garbage time. It was a good timing throw from Brandon Allen. That showed me something about Jacob Cowing. I really think that he's shown a complete route tree over the course of the past couple weeks, ever since he came back from the hamstring. And then, you talk about making the roster. Ronnie Bell, it's going to be tough for him. Are they going to take 7 receivers? Is he going to be a practice squad guy? I think that he's been a little shaky in the punt returns at times for the 49ers, but he has made, and some of the catches that he's made have been bobbled, and it seems like everything last week especially was an adventure. He didn't made what appeared to be a mistake today when the throw sailed to the other side of him from Brandon Allen. But I have to give Ronnie Bell credit for just fighting. I mean, it was a tenacious punt return for Ronnie Bell that was there in the second half. So, and it fired up the 49ers sideline. So give Ronnie some credit on that play, and we'll see how the 49ers shake out the receiving room. I definitely don't think it's likely that he makes the 53-man roster, but maybe he showed the 49ers something with that. And I think that it's not just the 53-man, it's the practice squad for the 49ers as well. Yeah, I wrote this too a little bit later. The Josh Dobbs TD throw from the pocket through a sliver to Jacob Cowing will do more to impress Kyle Shanahan than any of his highlight runs from the past 2 weeks. That was good stuff from Josh Dobbs. If you can deliver from the pocket, you're going to earn Kyle Shanahan's trust, and maybe that's what makes Josh Dobbs QB2. But delivering from the pocket is the baseline for Kyle Shanahan. The running stuff is all great. Again, I predict they're going to keep all 3 of these QBs on the 53, and if they like Mordecai in the practice squad. I thought Mordecai made a nice throw late to Ronnie Bell, of all people. I think stockpiling quarterbacks is never a bad idea. 49ers benefited from that just a couple of years ago when they stockpiled guys on top of Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo because they were able to keep Brock Purdy. It was a really big revelation for the 49ers. I mentioned the 3 pass breakups for Samuel Womack. Good stuff for the 49ers. I think that might have earned him the last DB spot on this team. We'll see what happens. It was low-key a great game, but why the hell was Antonio Pierce playing for the tie? Again, I'm not a soccer fan. I like to see wins and losses. There was a tie that I went to. It might have been the last tie the 49ers played. It was the game that Colin Kaepernick showed up on the scene. Alex Smith was concussed against the Rams. This is 2012. Kaepernick took over, did some nice stuff. But that game, I left Candlestick, and nobody was happy. You didn't know if you should be mad if you're a Niners fan. I remember that Niners fans were walking out. It's like, well, we should have beaten the Rams, but they also could have beaten us several times. So it's good that we didn't lose. But there was the other side that was like, well, it should have been a win. And again, there was no satisfaction for anybody leaving that football game. So it was tough. And I don't think there was any satisfaction leaving here after a tie, but that's just me. All right, that's it. We went 25 minutes. I'm tired. 49ers Raiders tie here from Allegiant. We'll talk to you guys soon.